For far too long, human trafficking has been this sort of hidden battle, hasn't it? Always adapting to global shifts, technology. But the latest UNODC global report on trafficking in persons, the 2024 one, it shows it's not just adapting.
Yeah.
It's morphing in some really disturbing ways. It's leveraging our connected world, exploiting new vulnerabilities with, frankly, terrifying efficiency. Today, we're doing a deep dive into these critical shifts, the ones that really demand our attention. We're drawing from that key UNODC report and some other essential sources too. Our mission here is to distill the most important insights, give you a shortcut to really understanding the evolving dynamics of modern slavery, the alarming role technology plays, the human cost, and what's being done globally to fight it.
Exactly. We'll unpack some key global trends, some surprising shifts, actually, in who is being targeted and how. We'll look at how organized crime is really using technology to expand its reach, examine the situation in Africa, which is particularly stark, and finally, look at both the challenges, which are significant, and also the innovative solutions emerging.
Yeah.
That includes the role of corporate responsibility, which is crucial.
Okay, so let's start with that big picture from the 2024 UNODC report. We're seeing this alarming trend. Detected victims are on the rise again. There was that dip during the pandemic, but now a 3% rise in global detections in 2022 compared to pre-pandemic 2019, and, well, a 29% increase compared to 2020. That's huge, what's going on.
Well, what's really striking here isn't just the overall increase, though that's bad enough. It's who is being hit hardest by this surge. Women and girls, they still make up the largest share worldwide, 61% in 2022. And most are still trafficked for sexual exploitation. That hasn't changed fundamentally. However, there's this rapidly, and I mean alarmingly, growing number of children among the detected victims. It's up by a third in just 3 years. And for girls, that surge is 38%. In several regions now, children actually make up the majority of detected victims.
Wow. A third in 3 years. That's a profound shift. So what does this mean for the types of exploitation we're seeing? Is that changing too?
It points to a critical evolution, yeah. How traffickers operate is definitely changing. Victims trafficked for forced labor now actually account for the biggest share globally. They've overtaken sexual exploitation victims in terms of numbers detected.
Okay, wait, so forced labor is now the biggest share detected, but you're saying convictions are still mostly for sexual exploitation.
Exactly, and that highlights a really concerning systemic miscalibration in the global response, right?
Yeah.
It suggests that while sexual exploitation, quite rightly, gets attention, this surge in forced labor shows a kind of blindness in justice systems. They're failing to prosecute the economic drivers, the corporate complicity, perhaps, behind so much of modern slavery. It basically lets the largest segment of traffickers operate with less fear. And we're also seeing this concerning rise in trafficking for forced criminality. That's where organized crime uses victims to run online scams, other illegal stuff. It creates this truly tragic spiral. Victims forced into crime, and then the evidence of those crimes is used to blackmail and control them. They're trapped.
That's just, yeah, a grim picture. And the technology angle you mentioned, it's chilling how tools designed to connect us are being, well, flipped and weaponized. How exactly are they using tech?
Right, but building on that point, it's clear technology is deeply integrated. Every phase of their operations, they leverage online platforms from start to finish. Victims get profiled, recruited through social media, online dating sites. Personal info is just out there. Traffickers create fake websites, post ads on legitimate job portals, often with live chats to snag personal details, passport info. It just gives them more power.
And the exploitation itself, it's not just physical locations anymore, is it? Is it just expanding old methods, or are we seeing totally new forms of digital-only exploitation?
That's a great distinction. And the answer is both. Sexual abuse, other exploitation, it is happening virtually. Photos, videos sold globally. Extra profit, no extra cost for the traffickers. What's truly chilling is how victims can be repeatedly exploited. Live streaming on multiple sites, no limit on viewers. It just maximizes profit. The real horror isn't just that they use tech, it's how digital pervasiveness has basically dismantled borders. It turns local crimes into these huge, scalable, borderless enterprises.
Which must make it incredibly hard for law enforcement.
Absolutely. Traditional methods struggle. You've got crimes planned in one country, victims in another, customers somewhere else entirely. It demands huge digital expertise, massive cross-border cooperation. Just look at the U.S. data showed around 40% of sex trafficking victims were recruited online, and over 80% of prosecutions in 2020 involved online advertising.
So this really sounds like organized crime isn't just involved, it's absolutely central to this whole digital landscape. What does the report say about their structure, their methods?
Yeah, the findings suggest most traffickers aren't lone wolves. They operate as structured groups, or maybe looser networks. And these organized groups, unsurprisingly, exploit more victims. They scale things up way more effectively. And in the context of forced criminality, especially those huge online scam operations in Southeast Asia, sophisticated transnational organized crime groups are deeply involved. They recruit young professionals, often 18-30, educated, media-savvy, multilingual, using fake online job ads, luring them from low and middle-income countries.
And then what happens?
Then they're confined. Armed compounds, long hours, impossible targets, debt bondage ransoms from maybe $1,000 up to $50,000, physical, sexual violence, and terrifyingly, they're forced to recruit others, even their own family and friends. What's truly next level, though, is the use of AI tools. Crafting sophisticated phishing messages, chatbots to manipulate victims, even deep fakes to get past security checks.
Fakes. Wow.
Yeah, and they launder the money online too. Cryptocurrencies make it easier to hide huge sums.
Okay, let's pivot a bit. Let's talk about Africa. The report gives it a whole chapter. What are the unique challenges there? Why is it such a focus?
Well, it really highlights this profound convergence of crises. Climate disasters, long-running conflicts, mass displacement. They're all making people more vulnerable across the continent. Some people caught in the middle are pushed directly into trafficking. Others are just left without homes, without prospects, making them huge risks. A third of all cross-border trafficking flows involve citizens of Africa. The impact of these crises is just particularly stark there. More people at risk than anywhere else globally.
Okay, so what are the specific root causes and the kinds of exploitation patterns identified within Africa?
You see three main interconnected factors, really. First, enduring armed conflicts. Africa is the most affected region globally. Think Ethiopia, DRC, South Sudan. Huge conflict fatalities. Second, the natural resources. Often abundant, but in areas with weak oversight, weak governance. And third, the devastating impact of climate change on people's livelihoods.
Can you give some examples?
Sure. Like, children are often trafficked for forced labor over short distances within their country, maybe regionally, exploiting economic desperation. This includes boys forced into begging, sometimes by teachers, in North and West Africa. It's tragically linked to a perversion of the traditional Talibé or Almajiri system. And you see widespread child labor in farming, mining across sub-Saharan Africa. In small-scale gold mining, debt bondage is really common, trapping people with impossible debts. Armed groups also exploit civilians massively. Children used as fighters, support staff, for sexual slavery, forced marriage, sometimes recruited right from their homes or even refugee camps.
And given all that complexity, how is the criminal justice system responding in Africa? Are they making headway with convictions?
Well, African countries have significantly stepped up efforts. Convictions quadrupled compared to 2019, especially post-pandemic. So there's progress. However, most convictions still tend to target smaller groups, individual traffickers operating locally. The big, structured criminal organizations based in Africa, they're more often convicted outside Africa, usually in destination countries. That highlights a real challenge in bringing the major players to justice on the continent itself.
Right, and the climate change impact you mentioned.
It's particularly dire. It leads to massive food insecurity, mass displacement, like 5.3 million internal displacements in sub-Saharan Africa in 2023 alone. And it fuels unsafe labor migration, pushing people into transactional sex or exploitative jobs like the Kai porters in Ghana, often women trapped by debt bondage just trying to survive.
Okay. Given this immense scale, this complexity we've been talking about, what are the most urgent needs for supporting survivors, for actually dismantling these networks?
Well, a critical point that civil society groups emphasize is that victims often have to be the ones to reach out to authorities first. Although, interestingly, proactive investigations do tend to identify more victims per case, the most needed services. Immediate medical help is huge, especially mental health support, counseling. Then reintegration, economic empowerment, job placement, education, free legal support, child protection, voluntary repatriation also vital. But a critical challenge everywhere, really, is the criminalization of victims. People being punished for crimes they were forced to commit because they were being exploited. That's despite international non-punishment principles that should protect them. It's a huge barrier.
It sounds like community involvement then isn't just helpful, it's absolutely essential, right? How critical is that grassroots engagement?
Oh, absolutely essential. The report really highlights how effective community-based approaches can be. Sometimes even unconventional tools work. For instance, in Nigeria, back in 2018, the Oba of Benin made this public declaration. He revoked the curses from traditional juju rituals,
which traffickers use to control victims.
Exactly. They weaponize these deeply held spiritual beliefs, coercing victims into oaths, making them fear supernatural harm if they disobey or escape. So the obearer revoked those curses and instead cursed the traffickers themselves. And that powerfully empowered many victims, gave them the spiritual permission, if you will, to escape.
Wow, that's incredible.
It really demonstrates the power of trusted community leaders, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the need for culturally sensitive strategies. But, the lasting impact of trauma, the stigma, especially sexual stigma, the labeling, it often causes survivors to self-isolate. It just underscores the need for long-term trauma-informed care that goes way beyond just the initial rescue.
And beyond direct victim support, there's this growing push for corporate accountability, especially around forced labor in global supply chains. What's driving that? What are companies being asked to do?
Indeed. Modern slavery, forced labor, trafficking, it's deeply embedded in global supply chains. We're talking over 50 million people affected and generating over $236 billion in illicit profits annually. It's staggering.
Just enormous sums of money.
Huge. So governments are responding with laws. The UK's Modern Slavery Act, Australia's MSA, California's Transparency and Supply Chains Act. The EU has its Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive coming. And the U.S. Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act that's already led to over $1.7 billion worth of shipments being detained.
So these laws are actually forcing companies' hands.
They are. They force companies to implement human rights due diligence, to conduct regular supplier audits, actually talking to workers, ensuring fair labor practices, safe conditions, and using traceability tech like blockchain to track their products. Because the cost of not doing it, the reputational damage, consumer boycotts, investors pulling at it, far outweighs the cost of actually complying now.
Okay. So pulling this all together, what does this mean for the future of anti-trafficking efforts globally, especially given some recent concerning developments?
Yeah, it really highlights how fragile progress can be when political will falters. It's quite sobering. Unfortunately, just this past July 2025, the U.S. State Department's TIP office, that's the Trafficking in Persons Office, a really key division leading global efforts, it was severely downsized.
Downsized? How badly?
Nearly half its staff dismissed, grants paused or delayed, its annual report delayed.
Yeah.
And this has sparked deep concern among advocates, understandably. They warn it undermines U.S. leadership, weakens international enforcement, leaves thousands of kids without support. It just shows that this fight is far from won. It needs constant, robust commitment. Progress isn't guaranteed.
We've definitely unpacked a challenging but absolutely vital topic today. It's so clear that human trafficking isn't static, it's dynamic, it's incredibly adaptable, deeply intertwined with global crises, economic vulnerability, and this accelerating technology. It really mirrors the interconnectedness of our world, doesn't it? For better and for worse.
And addressing it requires equally dynamic responses. Comprehensive, collaborative efforts at every single level, from international policy, robust corporate diligence, right down to grassroots community action, and just unwavering support for survivors. No single fix will work. Every player has a part.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Well, it means understanding just how multifaceted this crime is, recognizing the signs, maybe, and appreciating the critical work being done, but also the urgent need for continued, really robust efforts. Your awareness, your understanding, it's a powerful tool itself.
And maybe for our final provocative thought, given how quickly traffickers adapt, how they exploit new vulnerabilities from climate change, from tech innovation, what truly revolutionary cross-sector strategies might finally break this cycle? Something that goes beyond what we even currently define as anti-trafficking efforts to truly dismantle this abhorrent business model once and for all. What would that look like?